Welcome to the Síle Show, where real stories meet raw truth. This is a space for radical self-honesty, for courage, and for conversations that cut through the noise. A place where we talk about the things that really matter, the inner battles, the turning points, and the breakthroughs that change everything. The Síle Show isn't about perfection. It's about possibility. It's about choosing to grow even when it seems like such a stretch. Leveraging adversity as fuel for growth, not a script for suffering. It's about asking better questions, challenging old narratives, and remembering that no matter where you've come from, change is always within reach. Through stories, insights, and soulful conversations, we shine a light on what it means to live a full, awake, and meaningful life. This isn't just a show. We're actually carving out a pathway from limited to limitless thinking, from fixed to growth mindset, one quality conversation at a time. Join us. Let us be your trail angel. I'm your host, Síle Show, and this is the Síle Show. Onward, fellow journeymen. I have always believed that change doesn't come wrapped in perfection. It arrives quietly, in whispered other choices, in messy new beginnings, in brave returns. And sometimes the strongest people are the ones who've dared to break and build again. Today's guest knows exactly what it means to be in her pain body, to break open and to start over. Because there does come a time when it's more difficult to stay tight in the bud than it is to break open. Hers is a voice that we've all heard on radio, in clubs, in conversations that mattered, but behind the mic, beyond the music, there's a woman who walked through the fire of mental illness, stigma, and big struggle just to survive. But she's back. Her pain pushed her until her wisdom pulled her. And now she's thriving on truth. This is the Síle Show, and I am absolutely honoured to welcome a woman who turned pain into purpose. I welcome the fearless, the funny, and the fiercely real Nikki Hayes. Nikki, you are so welcome to the Síle Show. I have been absolutely dying to have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, I've been dying for this conversation. Can I ask you before we start, how are you feeling? Because I know I was watching your socials and you've had a really rough couple of days.
Yeah, I was in for surgery 2 days ago and it was expected. It was scheduled, so I knew it was coming up, but it was due to damage I did when I was in addiction. So I had acute pancreatitis and it was kind of hit and miss for a while. They thought my liver was failing and I was in a really bad place. I was in CCU for 12 weeks and I have to have a stent put into my pancreas to help it. So that's what that was all about. But I didn't really say what it was. It was just a picture of me lying in a hospital bed. But that's the drama feature. But no, most, like anyone who knows me knew what it was. Yeah.
Oh, you wee pet. So when were you in hospital for the 12 weeks?
2 years ago, just before I went into treatment. Yeah.
Oh, before you went into treatment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I see. And so you've had symptoms ever since?
I have, yeah. I'm on medication every day for it. And actually, when I was in residential, I had to be taken by ambulance from residential up to St. Vincent's because I had an attack of it again. So it's something that can rear its ugly head again and again because you're not producing the right bile. And, you know, there's problems with the pancreas actually getting rid of toxins and stuff like that. But a stent will help it. So I will have to have further surgery for that. So.
Oh, my goodness. So the ill effect of the morning of your life showing up in the afternoon of your life.
Absolutely, yeah. And like that's 21 and a half months ago and still have the effects. So,
My goodness.
Yeah.
So you're okay now?
Yeah, I'm fine.
And literally a couple of days ago, when you've winged your way here with your big smiley face, as always, and in your fabulous form, the energy bunny that you are. But it wasn't always that way. You've had a really, really hard time and you're choosing now to share your story, a bit like a beacon, like a lighthouse for others. So when did it become obvious to you that carrying the burden, if you like, of the two lives of Nikki, the public-facing Nikki and the private, unseen Nikki? When was it too heavy to carry?
I would say probably I was 23 when I was at the height of my career in 2FM. And, you know, I was young with a lot of money and I was working with the big hitters like Jerry Ryan and Larry Gogan, and they took me under their wing and I was living the high life. I was flying around the world on different press trips and meeting, you know, big bands, artists, celebrities, actors, and, you know, really being able to call some of them friends at the time. And, you know, and then I'd go home and I was suffering with my mental health. So I would be so outrovert while I was working, extrovert, and then I would go home and kind of go right back into myself. And I was battling very much with a high side and a low side. And I think during that time, because they were so extreme, I battled an awful lot with it, and trying to keep a little bit of a balance was a hard one.
It was a hard one. So do you think that perhaps if you could have had some training in how to tame your vanities, like the Tiger Woods syndrome, that it might have helped you at the time to come, because what goes up has to come down. So if you were traveling the world over and meeting all of the heavy hitters, if somebody had taught you, and perhaps in your workplace had realised, listen, this is going to be tripping the light fantastic, we need to build into the package here some sort of safe way to come down, would it have helped you, do you think?
Yeah, like when I hear the likes of Little Mix and X Factor contestants and stuff like that say that they're propelled into the starlight and they don't know how to cope with it. And then when the career doesn't work out, it falls to pieces and then they fall to pieces. I can totally see how. Now, obviously, mine was on a much smaller scale to that, but I can see how it would become a difficulty because, you know, for me, I was 23. Some of them are 16 and 17 when they're propelled into that starlight. So, you know, it is tough going, and to be able to balance it. And then, like I say, to throw in mental health issues and, as I now see, a developing addiction problem at the time as well. So all of that together was like a time bomb just waiting to go off.
Of course. And so take us back to your teens, those dark years. You ended up getting a diagnosis. It addressed eating disorders. What other challenges were you facing at the time? Yeah,
so I was 11 when I had my first drink. So that didn't help matters at all. My father was an alcoholic. He stopped drinking when I was 4. He went into treatment. But when I was 11, that didn't even register in my head that, you know, I have a parent who's an alcoholic. I was kind of awkward and I never really fit in. I was the child who kind of people jeered. I was friends with people, but never their best friend. And, you know, that kind of used to bother me a lot because I wanted people to like me. And I've had really, really bad self-worth issues all my life. I've never felt I'm good enough. The minute I meet someone, I think they hate me straight away and I'm on the back foot and I have to make them like me. And I remember my dad used to say to me, you know, you don't have to buy your friends. And I now know what he means because I constantly tried to do that, to go that extra mile just so someone would like me. So, you know, that was all building up in my teens. Throw in the drink and suddenly, wow, they like me because I was a bit wild. I was a bit of crack. I was a bit of fun. And it was like, you know, oh, she's dead sound. So I was accepted. And then I found that it was a little bit easier to get into these social circles. So drink became a crutch for these situations. And that developed on to when I went to college. Then it became a little bit more. There was, you know, experimenting with drugs, and it took me to a whole different place. And all this time, you know, when I was 15, I was diagnosed with anorexia. I also had anxiety and depression. At the time, they were also kind of battling with a split personality, but then it wasn't that. And then it was only like, you know, 15 years later, they came up with borderline personality disorder. But had that been diagnosed in my teens, I think it would have made life so much easier because I spent the whole time hopping from one diagnosis to another until they finally settled. And they only settled when I had an acute mental breakdown after having my daughter because I had postnatal depression, and I had her at 34. So I was 36 when I was diagnosed with BPD. So that was a long wait.
It was a long way. So we probably have so many specialists, you see, everybody looking after their own area of expertise and everybody giving you a diagnosis pertaining to what they're trained in, but no generalist getting a look at the bigger picture and realising this is borderline personality disorder. There's a fear of abandonment going on here behind it all.
Yeah.
And that was teeing up then everything else. So what precipitated what was never really investigated. And do you feel if that had been identified at an earlier stage, it might have saved you some of the trip hazards?
Absolutely, because I went, like you say, from psychiatrist and specialist to specialist, and it was Dr. Cran in Blanchardstown. Actually, I was in under observation when I had the acute mental breakdown, and she kind of stood back with a team of consultants and psychologists, and she was like, oh, I think this might be borderline personality disorder. It was like the penny just dropped. And I was like, wow, we have something. And then the more I got to learn about it and read up on it and, you know, was talked to by my psychologist, my psychiatrist, I was like, oh, that is me. That's me. I mean, this all makes sense now. So yeah, had I got it, you know, 15, 20 years earlier, it would have made life so much easier.
It would, in the sense that you might have had a pathway to a more whole you earlier, but you still clearly had a temperament for some of the other experiences that you had to go through. You had to push through those pain barriers yourself. So addiction in all of its forms came in like that dark shadow. So your exiled self, those parts of you that you've shared were shy in company, really, although you were very extrovert, probably. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are you an extrovert or are you an introvert? Because there is a big difference.
Yeah, and this is where I have the biggest problem, Sheila, because I would consider myself to be an introvert, but other people would consider me to be an extrovert. And that's because when I'm in company, I'm very extrovert. I will be larger than life. I will be the soul of the party, even while I'm sober. I'm the one joking, laughing, making everyone feel comfortable in the room. But then I like nothing more than to sit on my own in my room and be on my own. So I like to recharge. I cannot recharge my battery around people. I have to be on my own. And I like a lot of isolation. And I know, you know, solitude and isolation are two completely different things, but I do choose solitude an awful lot over, you know, being in people's company. So I guess I've always battled between the two because I can be very extrovert, but I really, really like spending time on my own.
Yeah, I would proffer then that you're an introvert with very good social skills.
Yeah,
and
probably.
I think there's a very big difference because the extrovert will absolutely need company and the high to refuel. They might be very flat. It could be 10 o'clock at night. They really need to be in their jammies because they have an early start in the morning. But you give them half an inkling that there's a pint and somebody down there waiting to see them and they're gone.
Yeah.
Because that fuels them. Whereas the introvert will very genuinely refuel in their own company, in solitude.
Yeah.
Actually, if you're so inclined, you can refuel even in a very busy space. You don't have to be on your own. When you can just become aware of your own breathing, become aware of your own thoughts, and find a space of solitude, even in a busy room.
Yeah.
So, not my business to tell you to do that diagnosis here, but I would imagine you're the introvert with very good social skills, which can mask as an extroverted personality, you know, somebody who's absolutely up for the crack. And I'm delighted to hear that you can do that without the booze on board.
Yes, yeah. Well, I didn't think I could, but myself and a friend of mine who I met in treatment went to see Marty Pellow. I wouldn't have even been a big fan of Marty Pellow, but we went to see him play in Trinity there last month, and I sang and I danced and I was like, wow, I can do this. And that felt so good because I was really afraid that I'm not going to be able to socialise again, because I thought I've used this since I was 11 years of age. Like, am I actually going to be able to enjoy myself in a social situation? And yes, I can. So I'm delighted with that.
That's fantastic. And I saw you posted recently about a night out with school pals.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. I really held space. I actually was chatting when we were in communication with each other around that time. I thought it was so interesting, so poignant and so important because you realise there was a pattern match there. There was a trigger warning. This is something from the time when I was, not just that I formally did with these people, but from that whole time space in my life when I was using alcohol and drugs as a crutch. How's that going to happen and shape up in my brain? Because you were slightly afraid, like you were aware of your body was feeling nervous, but you were slightly concerned about what your brain might do chemically with the situation. So how did it go?
Well, it was great. Actually, my two friends of mine from secondary school reached out to me about a month or two ago, and I met them for coffee, and they're like, we really need to go for dinner, and we did. And now some more of them want to come along, which is really nice because, like I say, when it comes to, you know, large crowds of people, especially girls, for some reason, I find it really difficult. So to be able to do that, I came away from that again and it was another win. And I felt, you know, I can do this. And they were great. They made me feel so, and you know what was really nice? They made me feel so relaxed, but it felt like there was no time. Even though we hadn't sat down together for over 20 years, it felt like it was yesterday. And I think that's the sign of a good friendship.
Of course it is. And quality connection grows us.
Yeah.
We have a basic emotional need for quality exchange of attention. Not just attention, but quality exchange of attention amongst many other basic emotional needs. But when we're not getting our emotional needs met healthily, which we can all do, it's still the meeting of a need, just unhealthily, we might command the room. But in a space where we're chatting and talking, feeling seen, heard and valued, that's the meeting of a basic emotional need. And it puts a stitch in your tattered heart very quietly.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, in the observational space, while the meeting is still going on. So as you enjoyed that and as you realised, I can do this and I'm sober, there's a safety, alcohol-free, safe, S-A-F-E, just feel it. Your self with a capital S was alcohol-free and still safe in that space.
And they chose not to drink for me, which was really nice, because I said to them, it was okay if you want to, you know, I'm not obviously going to, but they chose not to. And that respect also felt really nice. So
I love that. I love it because it was your first.
Yeah.
And you've been through so many firsts and worsts. You're trying really hard to get over that and to access the new place, the new you, fall in love with the new you. You're only getting to know the new you. So wasn't it lovely that they were able to bridge that gap for you by not being messy and sloppy and silly, which we will get to a place, you'll have to get to a place in your life where that will be going on around you and it'll be irrelevant. In fact, actually, you'll probably be the happiest person in the room because you'll know what you're not missing.
Yeah.
But I think for that reconnection with that group, it was really important.
Yeah.
And as you say, respectful of where you're at, but equally gentle. It was like a soft place to land.
Very. And I came away from it feeling very safe, which was nice, you know. And, you know, I remember I went to get the bus home and I just sat on the bus and I was really happy and I felt happy. And, you know, that's the kind of thing I'm noticing a lot about any interactions I'm having with people at the moment is I feel real joy. And I don't think I felt that before. I felt a synthetic joy, something that was brought on by, you know, maybe validation or different things like that. But this was like, I actually feel happy and I'm feeling a real happiness. And that's what I took away from that evening. So
I love it. The joy is the inside out feeling. That's the serotonin. So you're rewiring your neural pathways. Your neural architecture has been answering to a certain story for a very long time. And wet brain will have literally been the damp squib on all of the learnings that you could have made throughout your life while you were a victim of addiction. And it is a disease. It changes your brain. And so a bit like the microcosm could be that on any given night out, any one of us that will order our first drink. We absolutely will. Consciously, yes, I will have a Merlot or I will have a vodka tonic, whatever. You might even order the second drink. Maybe your friend orders it for you and you just go along. But after that, the second drink is ordering the third drink.
Yeah.
The third drink is ordering the fourth drink. And the fourth drink can take it wherever it wants to go. It can end up in a K-hole if needs be. You're not really driving the bus anymore.
Yeah.
You've taken your eyes off the road and your hands off the wheel.
Yeah.
And that's the danger space. And that's where you go to. So what does recovery look like for you now? So you're in that lovely space where you don't need a drink. You don't need to do drugs. And you're okay with that. You have a safety accessed in that. So what is your daily practice? What are your action steps that you do on a daily basis, because it is a practice, not a mandate?
Oh yeah, definitely. So for me, it's very much about routine. And when we were in treatment, we used to do daily and weekly and weekend planners. And I used to tear my hair out at the start, going, oh, not another planner. But, you know, I actually see the function in it now. Yeah. And to know what you're doing keeps you safe. You know, even down to things like my best friend is getting married in a couple of weeks' time and it's not in Dublin. So I'll need to be away from home. So I need to plan my in and my out. So, you know, there's a little bit of planning that has to go with things at the moment, but that's okay. I mean, at least I know what I have to do. And that's just to keep me safe, because for now, if I don't have my recovery, I don't have anything else. So, you know, when I wake up in the morning, I spend some time with, you know, devotion, reflection. I will maybe read from the big book. I might read some scripture. I might read, you know, quotations or positive thoughts, whatever, something to keep my mind focused on the positive rather than coming in on a negative, because sometimes you can wake up from a bad dream. I've woken up from really bad dreams and trigger dreams that could be from when I was using. Ones that have come back quite a lot lately have been when I spent time on the streets. So, you know, they've come back pretty hard lately, and they're quite traumatic. And, you know, I found the other day I was walking through the city centre, and everywhere I looked, I saw faces I knew. And, you know, it was just kind of, it felt like it was coming at me and coming at me. So for me to start the day with a positive routine is really, really important. I will always have my breakfast. Okay, I didn't have lunch today. I had a packet of Chews. But anyway, I did have breakfast. So, you know, like things like that. So it's about planning and structure for now. I'm sure maybe in 20 years' time that won't be necessary because I'll have a pattern going, I will have a routine. But for now, it's very important to have a structure.
On the Síle Show, we are so proud to champion resilience, confidence, and well-being. How we see ourselves stems from how we care for ourselves, from the inside out and from head to toe. That's why the Síle Show is proudly sponsored by Aleve Skincare. For over 90 years, Aleve by the Gardner Family Apothecary has been creating and manufacturing clean, sensitive formulations that really work on sensitive reactive skin, including eczema, dermatitis, psoriasis, and rosacea-prone skin. Aleve for clear, hydrated, healthy, and happy skin. Vegan, cruelty-free and sustainable skincare made in Ireland since 1934. Visit aleveskincare.com to learn more. And right now, listeners to this podcast can enjoy an exclusive 10% off at aleveskincare.com with the code Síle10 at checkout. That's SILE10 at checkout. Don't miss out.
Very important to have a structure.
Hugely important. And hugely important that you can notice the pattern match, because your brain takes a snapshot of a situation and it records the sound that was going on at the time, and it records the energy that was going on at the time, the emotional arousal that any given situation causes you, and it stores it away, ideally in the hippocampus, the filing room of the brain, but sometimes if it's hugely emotionally arousal, in the limbic system. And that's where it stays, like a big frozen footprint until you do some work going forward. So clearly when you were passing through those spaces and places, it was a pattern match to the time when you were there and you felt so vulnerable. And then your dreaming brain is doing a really good thing for you when it grabs those fragments and tries to close those loose threads into it. And it's never going to be exactly what happened. It's a metaphor, something quite like what happened to give you a sense of satisfaction. It's your body doing a really good thing for you, but it can be really difficult and hard on your body. Your temperature might rise, and so you'll waken up out of your sleep. I always think it's a really good idea in a case like that to thank your body. Just say thank you. You were clearly working really hard on my behalf just then. I noticed you wakened me, so we had gone as far as we could go. Let's do it some other time, preferably in a week or two. Thanks very much. And even sleep between now and then. The sleep is so important.
It really is. And I go to bed usually 8:30, 9 every night. And I know I've been on the phone to Farah, my daughter, and, you know, like, what time are you going to bed? And she'd say 10. I'm like, wow, you're up later than me, you know, because my routine is just so important. One thing actually I did learn in therapy for regulating myself when I do come out of these dreams is tapping. And I find it so, like, I remember one time actually being in the middle of a session and some of the girls were walking by the window where I was in the therapy room in residential, and I was, you know, sitting here like this, and they were looking at the window going, what are you doing? But for me, it's actually, it works. So, you know, if it works, I'm going to keep doing it. So, you know, I find that the tapping does help for me anyway.
Absolutely. Emotional freedom. It's fantastic. Apart from anything else, it is on meridians. It is genuine. There is science behind it. But also, what I would say about that is, if you believe it works, you're right. If you believe it doesn't work, you're right. So you grab the part of that works for you. The big butterfly hug, there's nothing like it. You know, is it Damien Dempsey that says, give your soul a hug? I love that. I give my soul a hug so often. My soul needs hugs.
Absolutely.
And it's a really good place to start. So if I notice that I've had a tough time in dream space, I genuinely praise my body. That would be my practice. I notice, I wakened up there at 4 o'clock in the morning. That wasn't without reason. You know, I don't want to waken at 4. I need my sleep. It's the elixir. But I also respect the fact that Mother Nature knows better. And my overnight therapist was doing some pretty hardcore work with me, and I clearly had enough at that stage. So, you know, I praise my body, and I encourage you maybe to do the same. Rather than ever feel unsafe with these very natural biological processes, they're always there inherently to heal us.
Yes. Yeah.
If we can go with that, it's much easier and much nicer. So when you were in recovery, and obviously learning all of these practices, and there's an element of pageantry about some of it, but it is, as you say, so important to have structure.
Yeah.
Structure. What was it like when you were in residential and going through the therapy?
Yeah, residential was very tough. Probably the toughest thing that I've ever done in my life. But for a reason, because it has changed my life completely. So, we would be up at 6:30 every morning. We would have devotions, we would have housework, we would have our breakfast, straight into, classes all day, exercise, walking, house duties. Then if you did something that, was considered bad behaviour, because they deal with your behaviours there, not only your addiction, coming off the substance is actually quite easy because you're taken away from the situation. It's the behaviours that actually are where it all starts and how it comes out and manifests. So, if you say something that is inappropriate or you act inappropriately towards somebody else, you'll get disciplined. And that could be weeding for an hour or two. I hate weeding. It can be washing windows, doors, it could be scrubbing pots. So it very much, brings you back down to the core and makes you realize that for everything that you do wrong, there's a consequence. And that's the whole thing that I feel after coming through. I did a 16.5-month treatment program. It's usually 16 months. I did an extra 2 weeks. We won't go into that. But for me, it was learning the behaviours. And for me as well, it was a big thing of taking the consequences, because I now can stand today and take ownership for all the damage that I did. Because I've seen people who've gone through treatment who say, but it's his fault, it's her fault, it's their fault, it's because of this situation and that situation. It's not. It's on you. Yes, you weren't well. Yes, addiction is a disease, but, we put the substance into our mouth or into your arm, or whatever way you're doing it, gambling, whatever it is. But nobody else is doing that. So there comes a point where you have to take ownership. And I think that's the hardest part of it. But I'm at that point now where I can put my hands up and say, yes, I hurt you. Yes, my actions did this, and I will take full ownership. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's not nice. But you know what? I've got to do it, because if I don't take ownership for what I did, I'll never move on. And, I found I'm on step 9 with my sponsor at the moment, and that's amends, and they're so hard, and some people don't accept the amends, and that's really, really tough, but that's okay. Because you have to remember that, I try to explain to a lot of people that for every person in addiction, at least 10 people are affected by their addiction. And that's at least 10. So, you might have really hurt someone or brought chaos into their life, and they mightn't want to let you back in. And that's okay. That's their prerogative. They do not have to let you back into their life. So, I think the ownership part and realizing there's consequences to it was a big changing point for me, and not an easy one, but definitely a changing point for me.
Did you feel at any point that you were being infantilized? Even when you started out on the program, did you feel that it was reducing you to a child or, a youngster being disciplined? Did you kick back against?
Yeah, absolutely. It's weird. Because of my job, when I went into residential, I didn't talk for 5 months. I was mute. Now, they say it was probably due to a bit of trauma of being on the streets. But, when I wouldn't talk, it got to the point where one of the managers was like, we're not going to be able to work with you if you don't talk. And there's a consequence to that, and I was like, what do you mean? I'm traumatized. But it's to get you out of that victim mode as well, and to realize that, people are there to help you. But yeah, you do feel a little bit like you're reduced to a child and you've been scolded, but that's okay, because it's for a better good. So
yeah. And also because you had been that high flyer, as you say, you were calling the shots. You were, to all intents and purposes, living autonomously. Again, the meeting of a basic emotional need. Now, we happen to know behind the scenes there was nothing autonomous about your behaviour. You were a victim of the drugs that you were taking. But the villain and victim doesn't work exogenously. You can use it as a story for yourself when you're stepping into your own story and owning it. But if you want to put the blame game, is never going to get you where you're going.
No. And I've seen some people go for that, and it doesn't serve them well. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you can only control you. And if you don't control you and take ownership for you, I don't know, there's not really much hope, you know, and that's why when it comes to residential treatment, you know, it has to be a self-referral, because no one will let you sign somebody into treatment. It has to be them coming for it. Again, it's owning it, you know, so I think that's really important for people to know.
It's hugely important because if you don't have the readiness, you might stay for a little while, you might box tick, but very soon afterwards, your subconscious and definitely your unconscious will get you right back into the mess you were in before. You have to choose to march into the light, know it's going to serve you, or really you're just going into the loop again. You're box ticking, you know, people pleasing to some extent. Yeah, I will. I will. It's never going to get you where you're going. It's not going to lighten your load. It's going to force you to land eventually. So when you were there and you had to do these tasks, I find that very interesting that you were, you know, subjected to the various tasks. And there was probably an element of comedy as well in the assigning of tasks. So if you were rebellious, I hate weeding, you know, weeding, mind you, there's an ideal opportunity though to reframe everything, because weeding in its own right is a very good metaphor for what we have to do within our own selves all the time. So if you have a really bad night's sleep and you're not really sure why, use the garden of your brain as an example of, well, what was my brain what was my overnight therapist weeding out of the garden of perfect me during the night? What weeds were difficult to pull out of the ground because they were so deeply rooted? And even then, whilst it's difficult, you just give yourself that little bit of light relief and you can, you know, ambulate forward and do your practices. So when you now would practice everything that you need to practice to keep you on the right road, do you find that there are times when discipline doesn't do it and you need to pull out your grit to get you back in the disciplined practice?
Yeah, because, you know, you have to be your own boss at the end of the day. You know, I'm a mother as well, so I can't have people running around fixing things for me and saying, you know, oh, you're so bold, don't do that again. You know, I have to step up and be an adult. So, you know, but the thing is, in treatment, and I'm not just saying treatment, because some people can do it via AA and, you know, they don't need to go into residential, but the toolbox that you have is so important, because it's when the chips are down and you're feeling that maybe you don't have the right thing to do, you don't know what to do, what to say, what way to act. Those tools are so important. And for me, one that I use all the time comes from Smart Recovery, and it's critical analysis. And for me, critical analysis is a huge thing, because I need to sit down and see, okay, if I go this way, how's that going to work out for me? And if I go this way, how's that going to work out for me? And then the pros and the cons and the risks. And, you know, it might sound like, you know, a little bit of a maths quiz, but for me, I need to do that, because I've been quite spontaneous with borderline personality disorder, where I would act on impulse. And when I do that, that gets me in trouble. Add the addiction into that, that gets me in a lot of trouble. So, you know, this critical analysis actually works really well for me. And I found Smart Recovery actually a tool that I did when I was in treatment that was very, very beneficial.
Yeah, it's amazing when you can play it forward. So we have an imagination. It's part of our emotional GPS. It's innate. And if we use it wisely, we can run a mind movie to see, what's this going to look like if I carry through in this character? What would it look like if I carry through in this character? Engage in this behaviour. Don't engage in that behaviour. It's just an element of being full in your mind of all of the adaptive things rather than mindful in the moment. Literally washing your brain, a tsunami of, ooh, that's what I'd feel like. Oh gosh, yeah, and then this and that. Okay, so you've got your power back, because impulsivity is a big symptom of addiction. And it's also a signpost of somebody who might have a temperament that's predisposed to addictive tendencies. And it is important to manage those things. They are all interrelated. So if you notice, oh, I'm being impulsive, you would need to probably stall. Sit with it. Feel it. Feel it in your body. Where are you feeling it in your body? Because you can't really fix it with your mind at that stage.
No. You're not going to make the right decision.
Yeah.
And for me, it brings up a feeling of panic. And then it's just, okay, how do I get rid of this panic? And for me, that was substance. You know, that'll quash that straight away, or quickly do something. But that's never the answer. You know, where I find sitting down, planning and working it out is actually the better way. Yes, it takes longer. Yes, it's not as exciting, but so what? It's the right thing to do. And it gets me into a better place at the end of the day. So
Of course it does. And after a period of time, what fires together wires together. So that then becomes the new norm and the thing that will give you a little bit of a high. Not a big high. We don't want big peaks. We don't want big inflections of peace or of big peaks of dopamine.
Yeah.
Because what goes up has to come down.
Yeah.
And we all have a set point. So when we, like once off, and I'm not suggesting that anybody do anything on a one-off, taking that risk. But if we do a thing that isn't good for our body, that's anything beyond foraging, which is I think what we were left here to do, healthily, everything else is a bit of a danger, has a bit of a risk with it. So when we engage in those practices, what we have to know is that after a certain period of time, our body will just take over. We could chronically chase that high. There's no effort involved. I mean, an injection or a drink, there's no effort. If you go up a mountain, there's big effort. Busting your way up the mountain, you're having to manage your breathing, maybe get your nutrition right, stop, have, some sodium, some electrolytes. There's effort, huge effort. And there's a big natural high, really healthy. Yeah, really healthy.
And a lot of people actually in addiction go into fitness afterwards, running especially. I haven't, clearly. But there's a lot of people who do. And I think that's it. It gives them that hit in a healthy way. In
a healthy way. But I always kind of caution people to not exchange one addictive process for another, even if it's very adaptive. Just, and I don't even advocate balance. Balance worries me as a concept. And I think it's out there nearly hazardously, because if people think they should be aiming for balance, I think we have a sort of a 50% notion in our head. I must work hard, play hard. Oh, I didn't self-care to the 50% level today that I should. And it can be a little bit challenging. I prefer to look for harmony. It strikes a sweeter note for me, the idea that some days I can give 80% to my self-care, right? Some days I can give 50% to my self-care. And whatever it is, that's what I give. I get strike this nice harmony, and it's a bit like the orchestra.
Yeah.
Different levels of music coming from different parts of the orchestra, and it's harmoniously beautiful. If we're pushing ourselves to try and strike that, even in relationships, if you're looking for balance, doesn't happen. Relationships would tank if everybody was supposed to be 50-50 all the time. You have to be able to say, listen, I've got 80% today. Can you pull 20? As long as we can get the 100 between us. So harmony is really where it's at. And the striking of that harmony is managing the impulse. Managing, getting out ahead of it, making our notes, settling ourselves. Where would you find, if you found yourself in a space and place where the chaos was starting in your brain again, where would you find in a busy place the opportunity to access the stillness?
For me, it would be a church. I find I would spend a lot of time in my hometown of Bray at the moment, and there's a church on the main street there that I've gone into quite a lot, and I will just sit at the back and in silence, not in prayer, just in silence, because I know it's quiet. I know there's not going to be a lot of people in there. I know I will have time to think. I know I will have space. So for me, that would be a safe space. And I don't know if it's an old Irish thing or what, that we know that, the church is going to be safe during the day. But, it's just, that's where I would go. Because if I was to walk into a GAA club, I don't think I'd get that same sense of peace. So at the moment, that would be my safe place, or by the sea. The sea. I mean, more than likely when I do move, it will be inland, and I'm going to miss the sea so much. I'm from Bray. I'm living in Greystones at the moment, and the sea is, there's a spot in Bray halfway down the prom where there's rocks jutting out into the sea, and I will climb down the rocks and sit at the very, very end. So to the side and to the side and to the front is just the sea, and that's my little place to think. And, nobody can get me. There's no passing traffic, and, I find nature very much is somewhere that I reset myself. But if it had to be a building at the moment, it happens to be a church.
Happens to be a church. I'm not surprised, because again, as you say, culturally, that's where we were weaned on churches being safe. And then we pull away from that as a practice when we're younger, because it's not cool. But when the chips are down, whatever was your practice and gave you safety, you're likely to go back to it. And I think a lot of us have probably broken. I know when I was younger, I was a very practicing Catholic. It worked for me. And it wasn't an effort. It was genuinely, it was how I was reared, but it was also how I was showing up in my teens and my early 20s. And my practice now is very different. I'm probably more spiritual now than practicing Catholic. However, or without a doubt, more spiritual than practicing Catholic. You know, it's funny, we probably all still feel like a good girl, bad girl, if we can say, I go to mass every, you know, and yet it's only a story.
Yeah.
It's just one story. I mean, the bottom line is it's that sense of believing in something bigger than you. Like when you're by the ocean.
Yeah. Your higher power.
Yes. The vastness of that just makes you feel smaller.
Yeah.
And there's a safety in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Knowing that, you know, the world will keep going if you're not the center of it, you know, that there is other things going on and you're safe in the knit there. And it's not just, you know, you holding it all together. You're just part of what's going on. And I think for me, that's a huge thing because I've always wanted to be accepted. So if I can be part of this big thing, that's better for me than being on the outside expected to bring it all with me. So, you know, there is a part of being joined in a community or in a scene, in the atmosphere, whatever it is. For me, belonging is a huge thing that I've struggled with all my life. So if I can feel part of something, I get peace. So yeah, that's a big thing.
I love that, Nikki. Thank you for sharing. I really love that. There's such a strength in your vulnerability. You've absolutely embraced how it is to be strong and vulnerable at the same time. And when we can become outward focused by sitting in nature and practicing awe, not even wonder, because wonder is still interactive. We're still, questioning. It's too busy. It might waken up the chaos. Sometimes just awe is enough.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the chance you give yourself when you're by the sea. It's like a refuel from the mothership.
It is. It's beautiful. And recently myself and my best friend were down in Laois, which is the underrated county of Ireland. It's so beautiful. But we went to the Rock of Dunamaze and watched the sunset together, which my mother said, that's a bit romantic for you and your best friend. But it was romantic. It was beautiful. And that for me was a new thing. I'd never watched the sunset before. I'm 46 years of age and I've never watched the sunset. But it was absolutely stunning. And there again, that peace and that belonging that you're part of this bigger thing. It was really nice.
Amazing. And there's so much science behind the exposure that we get to natural daylight, particularly if we can bookend our day with exposure to natural daylight for 8 to 10 minutes. First thing in the morning and last thing in the evening as the sun is rising and as the sun is setting, it resets your circadian rhythm, which is so healthy. And that actually mitigates then against the challenges of potential addictive tendencies coming back in and tripping us up. So our suprachiasmatic nucleus, I think, is it above our nose? I'm not 100% sure now, but it's the reset of the Zeitgeber, the timekeeper for your whole body. And that's what you did on that occasion. You gave your body a chance to just reset. So it's no wonder you felt that lovely sense of joy and peace.
Yeah.
And the serenity again. Yeah. What does the serenity prayer mean to you, by the way?
It's just for me an acknowledgement of where I'm at, where I was, where I'm going, and that I am a small chink in a larger chain. And also for me, the fellowship in itself is a sense of belonging. And you will never walk into a room and be told to walk back out. You know, the door is always open. They do say it's not a revolving door because you never know if you're going to make it back in again, but it's always open. And for me, again, it's a safe place. The serenity prayer just resets me. It just makes me remember where I was, where I'm going and where I'm at.
Yeah, and remembering that the things we've done wrong, the things that we're owning up to now and, making amends for and atoning for, shaped the path we would be on to get to where we are now. And we have the generous present moment. The past is only helpful from the point of view that it took us to where we are right now. The generous present moment is where all the creativity happens.
Yeah.
The past is irrelevant now. And if we keep remembering that, we just bring our past into our future. So I was dying to ask you how you feel about that in terms of AA as a practice and as a program, which I hugely respect, by the way. But is there a chance or a danger that somebody might become so addicted to the atonement and that it would keep them down?
Well, I have seen myself, obviously I'd been in a lot of recovery circles, and I have seen some people who can't make it through a day without having a couple of meetings. I mean, it's almost like a panic level. I need to go to a meeting. I have to go to a meeting. I don't think that's healthy either, because the meetings are there for a reason, to use them, but you also have to live your life, and you have to stand out on your own and live your life. So, using an AA meeting as a scaffold to hold you up is not a good thing. So I do think people can run to it and need it. Yes, you do need it, but not in that same way that, you can't get through the day without getting a meeting. That would worry me, because I know if I don't make it to a meeting, thankfully, I have other tools that I can use as well. And I have other people. I have, an accountability partner. I have my sponsor. I have people that I can turn to help. I have my friends. I've got friends I've made in recovery. But if I can't actually get through the day without going to 3-4 meetings, well, then you need to take a step back and go, okay, this isn't healthy either. So yeah, some people can get a little bit too fixated on, I will only get through if I get from this meeting to this meeting to this meeting. That's not healthy either.
So it's kind of exchanging one addiction for another.
Yeah. And you see that quite a lot. There's quite a few people I've come across that literally have to bounce from one meeting to another to get through the day. So, and at the start, they do recommend 90 meetings in 90 days for a reason, but they don't recommend 90 meetings in 90 days for the rest of your life. That's just to get you on a pattern and get you kind of safe and supported, where you'll network, where you get your sponsor, where you'll get your accountability partner, where you start working through the steps. That's why it's so encouraged at the start. But to continue that, not so good.
Not healthy. And if you are already beginning to feel stronger, your attachment style is going to be improving, hopefully, moving out of that insecure attachment style to a secure attachment style. So your friendships and your relationship to other people should be more healthy. And so there are other ways that you can have that need met at that time. You can have a quality conversation, not necessarily about addiction or about addiction. You'll always know the person that you can go to talk about whatever it is that's prevalent for you at the time, that would help you to move through, perhaps in a conversation.
Yeah.
And also, as you say, you've then got this sense of, I can feel safe by the sea. So you know that you can go to them. And that's as good as, I would imagine, a meeting when you get to that safe point, the far side of within the recovery process, because it is a practice, not a mandate. We can't take our eye off the ball. I always think, I did an interview with Brian Penny years ago.
He's amazing.
Oh,
amazing.
Honour him. Absolutely honour him. Saint Brian, amazing.
He's amazing.
He was actually my inaugural interview on my Hole in One podcast with Voice America years ago. And I literally said in the interview, we are crossing the rivers of change together, because I was at my kitchen table. It was just beginning of COVID.
Yeah.
So it was before we had all of these video podcasts, and a lot of it was being done for fun by people just to put away the time healthily.
Yeah.
And it was very new to me, literally kitchen table stuff. And I'm a digital klutz. Like, I'm such an analog girl. I'm a dinosaur. So he was lovely and gentle and kind. But I called that interview, how many more day ones do you want to subject yourself to? And we really sat with that for a while, because he could remember, his story is very different. It was very extreme. But he could remember when he was in recovery, noticing every now and then that, God, now, how many more day ones do I want to subject myself to? He was way past recovery. He was post-recovery. But he had a cold at one point, he said, and he found himself going to get, I don't know, Solfidine or whatever, Lemsip, whatever. And then he was going the next day to get Solfidine somewhere else or whatever.
Yeah.
And very quickly, there was a passing thought, wait a minute here now. Hold on a minute. Did you take your eye off the ball? This could very easily become a day one.
Yeah.
Now, he was very safe and he had all his work done. He was moving through his Trinity program at the time, absolutely amazing. In fact, I think he was probably post his undergrad at that stage. But he shared that story in essence to help other people to understand that it's in the pause. When you take your eye off the ball, old patterns can pull you down into places that you went to before that you just can't consciously run away from at the time. So you have to have all of those safety processes stitched in tightly.
Well, I was at an AA meeting a couple of months ago, and there was a woman there who told this story that really would sum up what you're saying there really well. She said that she was 15 years sober. She was at a wedding, and you know the way they come around, they say red or white, and her glass was turned upside down. And they came around, she said, no, glass was turned upside down. And she said they went around, and they went around again and again. And then this time they went around, she turned it upside down and said, white, please. Has no idea why. And then there she was on a relapse. Just she can't even tell what the thought process was, but something made her turn that glass upside down. That's why you need to be vigilant, and that's why you need to keep your routine, keep your practice. Do absolutely keep connected with your meetings, whether it be CA, GA, MA, whatever you're attending, and constantly. Like, I would read from the big book every day. It's been around for so many years for a reason, because it works.
And they say, actually, I don't know where you're at on Map of Consciousness, it's just a model by David Hawkins, but it's a logarithmic of frequencies, energy frequencies that we all operate out of. And it's just like anything else. It's like Jungian archetypes or Enneagram. It's just a model. It's not perfect. In fact, I think it's quite depreciated by some people in certain spaces within science. But I like it because it helps us to realize it's just a benchmark. Or, if you're feeling guilt or shame, that there's a frequency of 20 with that, right up to Jesus and Buddha are up at 650 type of thing. And if you are feeling, when they offer the wine the first time around, strong. So you're up at courage, let's say 200.
Yeah.
Because I remember the day now that would have been me, and I'd be on the floor and within a half an hour. And then the next time they go round, you're still in your conscious mind saying, oh, no, thank you. No, glass upside down. Yeah. A little bit of, maybe even a little bit smug. Yeah. You've moved into a different frequency, a different vibrational offering then.
True. Yeah.
So even that is, mind Achtung baby, mind how you go. Because you could get very smug and very smart. And that can actually waken up neural pathways from before unconsciously.
Yeah. And obviously did in that woman's case.
Yeah. In that case.
It's mad you're talking about the guilt and shame, because obviously with your background, it would be really interesting to know the guilt and shame is the part that I find very hard to lift from. I can rationalize things, like I say, I'm 21 and a half months in recovery now. And there's a lot I can do, but when the guilt and shame hits, that knocks you for six. It doesn't make me want to reach out and use, but it can bring me to a very dangerous place like that. It's like I can be up here having a great time, having a great day, doing well at work, doing well with everyone around me. And then that guilt comes in and it's like you're floored. And I think that's what people don't realize, how strong and powerful that can be. Because I know in addiction that the guilt and shame is phenomenal. And it can be sometimes someone will remind you of something you did, or, you'll get a memory of something, or you'll feel guilty. For me, a lot with my child. And that will just bring me back to a place that I think this is danger zone. And, you very quickly have to try and talk yourself out of that, because you mightn't want to use, but that's a place that, that neuropath could suddenly say, bing, this will fix this. And you don't want to go there. So, I don't know if you have a magic trick. But yeah, the guilt and shame is something I think I probably will be working on for the rest of my life, especially because I have an 11-year-old who's developing, who I'm rebuilding with. I don't have living with me. She lives with her father. So, the guilt of not being there for her, that's like a railroad that goes through my heart. And, I just don't know, is that going to be something that hangs over me for the rest of my life? Because I know deep down, no matter how much anyone tells me, but you're doing so well, and, you've gone through such a long program, be proud of yourself. I will never forgive myself for what I did to that girl, by how I feel abandoning her. It wasn't like that. I mean, she went to live with her father, but I feel I abandoned her, and I'm the one who fears abandonment. So, I don't know how you ever come back from that, and that's something that hangs over me all my life. I think it will hang over me for the rest of my life.
Let's work on that. I think that I thank you so much for sharing. I think it's very relatable and very candid of you to share. And I think that we always all have to heal what really hurt us so that we don't bleed out on people that didn't cut us. You know, you're afraid that your healing now has hurt your daughter so much, and we're wired for shame. You know, that's an important thing to just hold space with. Well, why would Mother Nature wire us for shame? It's such a rotten feeling. Mother Nature is supposed to get it right, but it is exactly so that we don't push into the edges with the stuff that isn't safe. So if we can begin to feel the shame just enough to make us get back in lane and stay in our lane, we stay safe and we don't use. Now, at this stage, it's not helpful to feel guilt and shame. There's theory. So we can read that in any book. That's no big magic, Síle, thanks a million. But you used a word very significantly. I will never forgive myself. Now, remember, language is a locomotive. It's taking you where you're going.
Yeah.
And you don't need that feeling where you're going. Because you are bigger now than you were before, and you're going to continue expanding. Time will expand for you. You're awakening. You're in enlightenment. It's a fantastic journey. It's a progressive broadening of the things that bring you joy. You were previously in a progressive narrowing of the things that brought you joy. You got to the point where your dopamine circuit could only take a kick out of substance or the behaviors that were risky or the impulsive decisions. So if you can, I wonder, could you possibly not bother with forgiveness at the moment of self? Don't bother. Jump straight to compassion.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, if someone said to me, you know, would you forgive yourself? And like, I've been wired for a long time on hurting myself. You know, from the time I was in my teens, I've self-harmed. I've got scars on my legs and my arms. And, you know, for me, it's always been a punishment, and I must punish myself and punish myself. And then the addiction was almost like a form of self-harm. And now I feel like, you know, something in me, deep inside me, like that loud critical voice just keeps going, but you don't deserve, you. It's like that big finger pointing. And, you know, I really don't feel that there's any part in me that has room to forgive myself or even, you know, to park it. I feel the punishment is just, and that, you know, it's a hard one to break. It's definitely a hard one to break.
I hear you. I am tracking completely. I know, I really know that is, has to be true. If you could possibly, though, go back and whisper a truth, a compassionate truth about gorgeous you to your 18-year-old self now in this space, to the tune of, it's going to get rougher, buckle up. You're going to do some majorly injurious stuff, not just affecting you but others, and prep yourself at a wiring point in the neural architecture for the fact that when the time comes, you will just have to unhook this because you don't need it where you're going. And it will not take you where you need to go at the speed you need to go there. It could actually be the bungee back that you just don't need. We're wired for shame for a reason. If we misuse that wiring and stay in our place of self-punishment, that's not going to take the story from your daughter's first chapter. But what might do is if you pick up the pen and write a totally different ending.
Yeah.
So jump straight into, I know they're big words in a very public space like this, but I hope that maybe when you rest tonight, when your brain will pull fragments of this into your REM sleep, that maybe you'll allow yourself to just try it out in a dream. What would it feel like to genuinely just go straight to, what is compassion? What's the difference between compassion and forgiveness anyway? Forgiveness, we've already long since realised, doesn't even require the other person to know that we've done it. Realistically, if it pertains to somebody else, it's just a state of mind and body where you turn your centre away. I actually said that to Keith Walsh in an interview on the, it's great, on the Hole in One podcast, and he stopped and he said, what? Say that again. So my whole idea being, you know, if I'm people facing in a way that's challenging for me or that my insecurities can't cope with, I can just turn my centre away. I can still be with them, smiling, engaging with them, but I can turn my centre away if my centre is afraid of what their energy is bringing to the space. And forgiveness is like that. You can genuinely forgive the person because it saves you from suffering. In this situation, to forgive yourself is engaging with it all the time. I wonder, just for now, if you could just jump straight up to that higher frequency of compassion. What is compassion? Well, it's non-engagement with the issue. It's just an absolute acceptance that it is what it is. It's kind of like faith, and you're already there.
Yeah.
It's the serenity, it's the peace and the tranquility that helps you not to engage with the inner critic, not to engage with the self-talk that has a field day at your expense.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Yeah. I always say to clients, you know, when thoughts come in that are challenging, NATO that. Notice it, acknowledge it, and tell it to tip on. And on that occasion, when you feel shame or guilt in relation to what has happened, in relation to your gorgeous daughter, I know it's really challenging, but it is not going to make it easier on her if you keep beating yourself with that stick.
Yeah.
And it just might make her life totally different if you get to the place where your compassion brings you to an even safer version of your gorgeous self. You guys have a lifetime of fun to have. Yeah. Mother and daughter, you big lucky duck. You big lucky duck.
Yeah,
it's
she's
all
great.
to play for.
She's great.
And how is she coping?
She's good. She's resilient, very resilient, and I'm extremely blessed. Her father's a brilliant father. Things obviously didn't work out with me and him, but he puts her first for everything, and he has a great partner, and you know, they have a very safe, loving environment for her to be in. So for that reason, I'm extremely blessed and grateful to have them, and she's doing well. She's doing well. She's adapting to mommy being back, and you know, we do things at her pace. You know, she's not forced into anything, and everything is done at her pace. And, you know, the next step is for me I'm still technically homeless. I live in the transition house of the rehab that I was in because I have nowhere to live. So I'm waiting to find somewhere to live. And, you know, then we can start having like sleepovers and things like that and build things back up again. So, yeah, it's slow, but, you know, she's doing well. She's really resilient, and I'm just very blessed that she's in a very loving environment, that she has the ability to express how she feels, you know, and be who she needs to be. So
that's amazing. And just taking your time with meeting her where she's at. That's all you can do. And she's young as well. So, you know, but it's really important for her that you're so honest. I honour you for that, because it would be easy, you know, to exile that as well. But then she's just, you know, what we wind up in this generation has to be unwound in the next generation anyway. So if we can help them with the stuff that we throw into their worlds, you know, like we're all suffering intergenerational stuff, cross-generational stuff, and the world is very curated. Like we think that it's pink and perfect in other people's lives. It's not. It's not. Families are families are very fractious at the moment. There's a lot of addiction in a lot of families. That's, you know, just because you're not on a park bench with, you know, plastic 2-litre cider beside you does not mean that people aren't living with alcoholics. Yeah. People who are impulsive, who have a very low mood if everything doesn't go their way, if they're not on this hedonic treadmill all the time. And families very often struggle with that because it's not identified. Yeah. Sometimes you're in a safer place when at least you can name the animal. Yeah. You know, you begin to heal.
I know through the process over the last couple of months, I've been contacted by an awful lot of families and concerned persons who are exactly like that. Just life is so unpredictable for them, and they don't know what to expect, and they don't have support. And I think that's one thing that I'm really passionate about, trying to work with families on getting them supported, because if they're not supported, they can never support the person who's in addiction. So, you know, I think that's something we overlook in this country. There are a few organisations that do it, but a few, you know, so that's something we obviously need to look at further down the road. Yeah.
You're amazing. I'm watching you doing that, and you're just phenomenal. I applaud you every time. I say you're fabulous. People need that, and they need your story. But you have to mind you too, though. There will come a time when transitionally that was great, but then well, I can't tell you your business, but there might come a time when it might be important to hand that over to somebody else, hand the baton on and get on with your life. And unless your life, sometimes it's important to realise that what we do and what we're passionate about can also make us our money. But that's great. Yeah. You know, it can kind of be like, you know, creating your own wee blue zone, whether you're in Bray or leash, or if you go,
Wherever.
you can create your blue zone.
Yeah.
Because it's just, okay, what is the blue zone? Well, it's that sense of, am I doing my exercise? Am I having a whisper from nature every day? Am I, do I have my Maui, my little tribe, my people, whether you meet them physically every day or you're on the phone or texting, you're find your tribe and hold them close. Won't always be your family.
Yeah.
Very hard sometimes to realize that, but it won't always be your family. The biggest success story there is realizing that and turning your center away, letting them go until everybody's healthily ready to come back and grow together and awaken together. Your blue zone is your ikigai. At the moment, this is your ikigai. You're doing this, you're getting meaning and purpose from it, helping other people.
Yeah.
At a different time, you live a different ikigai.
Yeah. I mean, my calling has always been radio, and that's what I love, and that's where I get my joy, and that's where I feel I'm safe and I'm happy. And then, like my people, I've said, I've three close friends who've been there since I was in my teens, and they did step away for a while and they had to, but they're back tenfold in my life. And, Audrey, Ronan and Paul, I would be lost without them. They are my people. And I mean, Ronan actually rang me about 2 weeks ago and said, stop mentioning my name. But I was like, but you've done so much, but like sometimes you have to acknowledge these people. But I think you're right in that, like you need to have your tribe and have your people, because my people are very important to me. And without them, I definitely wouldn't be standing today. So.
Oh, I agree with you. And it doesn't matter, how many or how few, as long as they're real, because you clearly had a sense of fit-in fatigue when you were younger. You had loads of people around you, but you didn't have a sense of belonging.
No.
Big difference.
Huge.
So you're better with your Ronan and your who? Let's give them all
Ronan, Paul and Audrey.
Ronan, Paul and Audrey.
Yeah.
Go, you guys, you're amazing. You're better with your one or two people that you can believe in. I know I was writing at one point, and one of the chapters I wrote was My House Has No Roof. And it was from stories that had come through my practice about people who were feeling so marginalised, isolated, othered, whether in their romantic relationships or their family of origin or their friend groups. Some people are so lonely they can't find friends. They're really genuine friends that they have something in common with. They're struggling all the time to fit in.
Yeah.
It's exhausting, and it leaves you then vulnerable to addictions and other things to numb the pain. So if we can create our own little blue zone wherever we are, which we can, you don't have to be in Okinawa to walk up a hill so that you're exerting yourself healthily, making the effort to get the dopamine.
Yeah.
You don't have to, watch all of these social media channels to know that more plant over meat is better, whatever, all the stuff. It's inside out. It's the joy you talked about earlier. And certainly quality connection with decent people is where it's at.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Where it's at.
I used to have quantity and I realised it's so shallow. It is not important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can have big groups. Like people create big groups around themselves, sometimes in their ikigai space. It can be good. Only when it's good.
Yeah.
That's where you climb up into your observing self. Watch. What are you thinking about? Think about what you're thinking about. Change it if you need to. Notice. And in that attention, what you're aware of, you can control. What you're not aware of is controlling you.
Yeah.
And the friend groups sometimes are actually really toxic, and you can be doing things that aren't speaking to your value system just to fit in.
Yeah.
Big warning signs, bigger warnings there. Just before we finish, and I honour you, by the way, you are a hero. I said this to you when we chatted on the phone a few weeks ago, that, and I'm quoting Anna Lemke when I say this, our addicts are our modern day prophets, recovering addicts, because they show us how to pull off that skin and start again. And I think you're absolutely amazing. You have stepped up into the strength of your vulnerability, and you're facing your shame. You're looking down the barrel of the gun at the shame, and you're not going to stay there, because you're a winner. You're a winner. I know it. And time is going to expand for you, and you are going to make all of the dreams come true that you deserve to, and have always been stitched into the plan for your life. I know that. And you're proving that every day with what you do, sharing your story for the higher good. There's a lovely Japanese practice called wabi-sabi, where artisans will actually make mistakes in cloth that they're weaving or pottery that they're hand blowing. in order to celebrate the mistakes. What do you feel about that type of ideology or philosophy?
I definitely feel I wouldn't be who I am with the vision that I have today had I not gone through everything I went through. Had I not reached rock bottom, I don't think I'd value things as much as I do today. I've changed my whole perspective on things. It's not things. I don't care about money. I don't care about possessions. It's people and how much I value people and the very few people who I value. I mean, my daughter is just everything to me, everything. And I mean, my heart bleeds for every moment I'm away from her. But my people in general, my family, my friends, it's all about them. Possessions mean nothing. And I think that's something I've really, really learned. And I don't think I'd have learned that had I not been on a park bench in November in the Lashons and Rail feeling like a nobody. Had I not done that, I wouldn't be sitting here today realising what's important.
You're amazing. So you're, I suppose, engaging with the fact that it's hard to say it, but maybe the journey has given you more than it has taken from you, even though that is such a huge statement. But I think, am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I am going to be the best mother I could ever be because of what I've been through. And that's a hard thing to say because everything was torn from me. But I'm going to be the best person ever because of it. And maybe I would have only done it in half measures before. Now I'm going to be 110%.
Hear, hear. Now you've just sorted the shame piece and you talked yourself into the legacy piece that goes with not doing the shame, because the shame is a hole in the ground. Leave it behind. You are the jailer, but you hold the keys. When you lock yourself into a place of shame or guilt, you can stay there and watch the world through those bars. You are not going to be out having the fun with your daughter that I know you feel is going to happen and you believe it. You have the keys around your belt. Just reach out, open that lock. And on that note, I am going to say, with all of my heart, thank you so much. You are an absolute legend. Thank you for joining us on the Síle Show.
Thank you for having me so much.
Nikki, thank you so much for joining us on the Síle Show. And thank you for gifting me stewardship of your story, which you shared so soulfully. Definitely in service of something much bigger, I proffer. I know that out of the many takeaways for me, I'm just going to be so aware in future that thoughts are not truth. They're just the proverbial first draft. And we can rewrite consciously when we know that. Like if we feel that our thoughts are running the show, just climb up into our observing selves and watch the show instead. Think about what we're thinking about and make the requisite change. Because you can't see what's on the label when you're in the jar. And there you have it. The fear beneath the fix is revealed. We used to think that addiction was about bad choices, about pleasure seeking gone wrong. But maybe it's not about the high at all. Maybe it's about the ache. The ache we couldn't name. The pain we never felt safe enough to feel. When we can see addiction not as a crime, but as a cry, something shifts. We stop judging. We start listening. We make space not just for others, but for ourselves, for the messy, wounded parts, the ones still trying to make their way home. Addiction, in its deepest sense, is the soul's way of reaching for connection, a lost kind of longing, not a failure of will, but a search for wholeness. And so recovery, well, not necessarily just about being healed, more probably about being and feeling whole. From numb to known, from shame to self with a capital S. Nikki's story prompts us to bring curiosity to our concept of what addiction actually is. Maybe it's not so much about craving and more about fleeing pain, rejection, the stillness. even the fear of being ordinary, at least, or ultimately fear of dying, perhaps. What if healing isn't found in the fix, but in the feeling, in sitting, just for a moment, with what we usually run from? Last week, we asked you to stroll through the corridors of your experience, opening the doors in the house of many rooms that is you, to contemplate your exiled parts, your manager parts, your protector parts, and your firefighter parts, and consider integrating them into your awakening self, your shadow self, especially before you sleep. This week, I have a very simple task for you. It's simply just to pause. Choose one moment when you'd normally reach for distraction, and don't. Don't scroll. Don't numb. Just notice. Notice what comes up. Notice what wants to be felt. Because maybe the path home isn't paved with answers, but with attention. Because what you're aware of, you can control, but what you're not aware of is controlling you. And so it is.